This issue of gender-based violence has become a very painful issue to many of us, because rather than see gender-based violence going down, we continue to see incidents of gender-based violence. But what is more troubling is how the men of our country continue to abuse women, not only by killing them, by raping them and brutally killing them, but it gets worse when it actually involves the rape of children as young as a few months, children as young as 2 years, and the impregnation of young girls, as it was being said earlier here by Minister Chikunga. That is painful. And that is why we say we must all rise against gender-based violence. We must all rise, men and women, and make sure that we bring the levels of gender-based violence down.
I am privileged, as I had the possibility to witness and to see and to observe how this convention begins and how it ends. And in my content, I will just tell you about the genesis of this convention, how it begins, how it was coming, who are the people behind it. And we are really lucky to have powerful women in Africa and the African continent, because these women push it really and give the best of themselves so that we can have this drafted, so that it can become a treaty, a convention of the AU. So I will tell you about all the process till we are in February 2025, when the member states adopted this convention. After that, I will focus in the second part on the content and the specificities of this convention. Some people can ask, what is the plus value? We already have the Maputo Protocol. We already have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, while they address some issues regarding women. So while we need a convention per se, an autonomous one, I will just focus on the content, but at the same time, what is the plus value of this convention? Number three, when we are in the human rights domain, we need all the time a mechanism to implement and to monitor. And in general, within the African Union, the different judicial and quasi-judicial organs are the ones who do this monitoring and implementation. So it is most of all the Banjul Commission and the court, and I will tell you about the need for a committee, but it was not allowed by the member state, and there is half of the convention was deleted, and I will explain why. And as we are in the human rights domain in Africa, we will also be realistic, and we will highlight the challenges in the question of the women rights in Africa, and because we need also to be optimistic and to think together with the high voice, we will try to put some recommendations on some perspectives. And as said, Professor and the team, and thank you for Candice. You have question and answers messages. You can ask as many questions as you can, so that I can just gather them and I can answer after I finish the presentation. So as I said, this convention was adopted this year, beginning of this year, at the summit of the AU in February. And this convention has as a name to, and just let's go on, as you see here, the main important objective, as this is the title of the convention, it is to end, but is this possible to end? At least there is the preventive option, but also the protection option. We will see that this convention is addressing the violence against women and girls in all the steps before, meanwhile, and after. And this is the first instrument at the African level to address all forms of violence against women and girls. And when we come to the content, I will explain what is the plus value of the definition of violence against women and what is different from other conventions at the global standards, especially the one of United Nations, what we added at the African level and what are our specificities. As I said, this was done in 2025. However, the preparation for this convention begins at least 5 years before. It was at the COVID year. It is between 2021, 22, something like that. And it was a whole process, and I will highlight this process. But when it was done, women in Africa, and especially in the room, were very proud, and they consider it as a historic decision, because this is something that we need and that we wait for long. So we are in 2025, maybe it took too long, however, it is there. In February 2025, as I said, this draft convention became a convention and ready for signature and adoption. And we need at least 50 member states so that it comes into force. This convention aims to establish a comprehensive and legally binding framework for the prevention and elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls. So it is not only women, and behind that, the convention will tackle also the girls under the age of 18, because in Africa, still these girls are having a lot of forms of violence, and that's why we need to address them. Another point, it is not called a protocol or it is not called a declaration. This is a convention. So if you can compare with the Protocol of Maputo, the Protocol of Maputo is added to the convention, to the Charter, African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It was added so that they can add some perspective for women in Africa. However, our convention is, as I said, autonomous, it is independent, and it is not called declaration as one of United Nations. When it is declaration, it is not binding. However, this one is called convention. That means that the member states who will ratify will have the responsibility to disseminate and to implement such a convention. And this is also very important in terms of morality, but also the legal perspective. Also, this convention has as objective to ensure that state parties reinforce an approach that is common to eliminate violence against women and girls. And you will find, if you go through this convention, that most of the articles are about the responsibility of the states. So it's important that at the beginning of the convention, we highlight the definitions, the objectives. However, most of the convention is about responsibilities and obligation on the state, on the shoulder of the state parties. And we will tackle that after. There is also the question of the context where we are. I'm saying that we are in Africa, and the issues of human rights in Africa are really very sensitive. Africa in general has the more important number of conflicts, both international and national armed conflicts that are international and national. Also, we have in general practices that are not healthy, like the female genital mutilation. This kind of practice are something like a custom, something like practices that are already does exist in a lot of states in Africa, and the number of women and girls that are under this problem is large, and they have complication for their whole life. And this is also Maputo Protocol is addressing this issue. We have in Africa also the forced marriages, and girls can be married under the age of 18 and they are not mature enough. So this can give a lot of problems and complications, including being raped by their husbands when they are at this age and they are afraid and they are not ready. As I said, we have a lot of conflicts in Africa, and unfortunately, sexual violence become means of war. This is war crimes are in ICC Rome Statute, and it is a pity that even in Africa, till now, we are in 2025, but still the sexual violence are done as an arm or as a war kind of new arm and a new arm and the new wars in Africa, and the consequences, as you can imagine, are disastrous for the women, but also for the whole family. So that's why we have a lot of issues on international humanitarian law that can be cross-cutting. Sexual assaults, violent physical assaults, kidnapping, etc. However, you will see that in the definition of what is violence against women, it is not only physical. You will see and you will find that the scope of implementation and of application is wider than the sexual harassment and the kind of physical violence. It is much more than that. It can be also economic, moral, psychological, and it is not only the act, but even the temptation of the act. So we'll see that in the definition. That's why it's very important to put the context why we need such a convention in Africa now in 2025. Also, the place where the violence is done, it is not only private space like families, between husband and wives, or between father and girls and daughters. It is also in public. It can be done in public space, like schools, like in the work, in the jail, in the security institutions. Also, both in peace, this is peace time, but also in wartime. And as I said, there is another option as we are in 2025, and the convention really, and the ones who drafted the convention were very clever, and they think about the cyber space too. So we will find that they added this issue of the cyberspace that you cannot find in any other conventions or any other texts when we compare it to Maputo Protocol or to the ones at the United Nations level. Also, if we can dig more, we are in Africa. We have in Africa Arab countries, Muslim countries. I will not generalize. I come from Tunisia. I come from an Arabic country that is supposed to be one of the best or the most progressist countries in the women rights. However, me as a woman, I lived violence in several, in several decades in my life. I'm 50 years old now. So when I was a child, when I was a young girl, when I am a woman, you can see, I think if you can find this large circle of definition, I'm sure that the ones who are online, especially women and girls, can tell us stories of violence daily, as I was myself had these very bad experiences in the buses, for example, in the public sphere, online, whatever. The violence, as I said, it is really something that have a definition that is very wide and large when we address our African Convention. And as I can tell you, you see here these last paragraphs, it's about patriarchal systems and male dominance in our societies, especially Arabic ones. So in general, our men, again, I do not need to generalize, there is still equality and people who respect women as leaders, as a mom, as a professor, as a director, as a whatever. However, sometimes in some families and in some circumstances, there is male dominance, there is unbalanced powers between gender, and this is a pity, has as consequences that women suffer from this question of discrimination. And in general, and especially in our societies, they are under fear and under the sight of the society, so they shut up, they say nothing. And now, because we have this kind of convention, this taboo, between parentheses, should be now an issue that we can tackle, that we can speak about, that we can encourage even movies, cinema, songs. Thank you to begin with the song and to recall the theme of the year. You know, art in general is wonderful so that it can push the people who are under terror and they are afraid because of their stigmatization. They just can speak about their experience, and this can inspire the other ladies, the other girls and women in Africa, so that we are aware about our rights and we can no more let this question of domination and question of violence again. But we need more, as I said, in the legal perspective. It is much more than words. It's about a convention that will be binding and that will put the responsibility on the shoulder of the member states to do or not to do. So as I said, I will go now fast on the genesis of this convention. So these conventions, as I said, it is not new in the domain of reflecting protection of women. We have at the continental level, at the African level, other umbrella of what is called, the umbrella is the Charter of Human and People's Rights. However, just pay attention with the dates. This charter, even if it does cover all the generation of human rights in Africa, and it is much better than the ones at the inter-American or European level, because it was in the 80s, but it does not address specifically the issue of women. And that's why we have the protocol of Maputo. It's called the Maputo Protocol because it was signed in Maputo. It will address other specificities of the rights of women. And we have also, because we are addressing women and girls, we need also to take a look on the African Charter of Human and People's Rights, on the rights, the African Charter on the rights and the welfare of the child. And within the child, you can find boys and girls. In addition, we have a lot of campaigns and other NGOs and civil society that are trying to make noise on the question of ending violence against women and girls. So this is before the convention come. The Maputo Protocol, as I said, it is a wonderful legal instrument. However, we need still more. You know, this is the explanation, and I will explain why we need this convention ending violence against women and girls. But when you go through the Maputo Protocol, you will find that Maputo Protocol addressed all the kind of rights for women. And I think if you just go through it, you can see that it addresses a lot of complication at the African society, especially the genital ablation. And this is kind of customs that has no relationship with religion. And as I said, it makes the girls suffering for the whole of their life. And again, who will be responsible to eliminate or to stop this kind of practices? It's about the member states. That's why it's important all the time in this kind of conventions in the human rights field, that we can find a mechanism to implement and to monitor, and that we can give this to the Commission of Banjul or others. Also, at the global framework or at the universal stage, one of the most important conventions is the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. We have also the Declaration on Elimination of Violence Against Women. And as I said, this is called a declaration. It is not a binding instrument. Plus, it was in the 90s. And that's why I tell you all the time, when you are focusing on an instrument, see what is the date and try to see what is the new and why we are addressing new challenges. In the 90s, Me, I was a young girl in the 90s. We didn't have this phone between our hands all the time, these screens, these tablets. So there was not this threat on cyber. We are at that time still discovering internet. Nowadays, as I'm doing this lecture today, there is maybe millions of problems on harassment of women and girls daily, or maybe each second, because of these technologies, and this can give a new kind of violence against women and girls, utilizing and using the technology and internet and the cyberspace. So that's why this kind of convention, when it is written in 2025, it will make new ideas. If you visit the United Nations website, you will find that they have some guidelines about soft law on the question of elimination of violence against women on the cyberspace, but they do not have a convention like we have. And as I said, it's not soft law. This is really a convention that will be binding. Also, we have a lot of other conventions, especially in the time of war, like Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, Degrading Treatment or Punishment, all the framework of labor organization, especially on the elimination of worst form of child labor, etc. And just I need to highlight that these issues in time of war can be considered as norms of jus cogens, or at least what is called preemptive norms. That means that there is not a single exception for them. So we cannot do any violence against women just because we are doing war. It is forbidden. This is a crime against humanity. This is a war crime that is already forbidden and cannot have any exception. So what is now the justification? Why we need this convention? It is said, and if you can go to the preamble of our convention, it was already there. It is said, for example, in the last paragraph of preamble, being aware that in general, violence against women and girls continues unabated in Africa, despite the existence of global, continental, and regional instruments, we agreed on the follows. So in the preamble already, they address all the framework, both at the regional and at the global levels. The first paragraph, it does give us enumeration of all these protocols and conventions I cited. However, it said that even with this framework, still we have problems of violence against women and girls, both at the national, at the continental level, and at the sub-regional level. And if I can go to statistics, and this is not me, it's United Nations statistics, it is said that more than 40% of women aged between 15 and 49 in Africa experienced physical or sexual violence. As I said, this is what we know. 14% seems, for me, not true. It's much more than that, as I said. And I'm sure that every woman now listening to me can remember an act of violence when she was young. So we have also other statistics telling that the most Africa is the highest level of gender-related killings of women, what is called femicide. Why we kill women? Because of again this patriarchal environment, this unbalanced power between men and women, because women are not allowed to go to school in some countries, villages, etc. They are just there to have a husband and not to feel in love, and all these issues in patriarchal system is still there. Sometimes it's about economic problems. So sometimes it's about, as I said, in the family, within the family, the stress of men, so they just need to express its stress or to feel better. So women are beaten without any reason. All these issues, and we have stories, just click and go to YouTube and see nowadays, because of this, again, this phone, we can do a film at instant, at any kind of violence, we can witness it and we can share. So you can find daily a lot of acts of violence against women, as I said, both private, in the private and in the public space, but also online. plus the issue of the war crimes and within the conflicts. As I said, this idea of the convention came at the moment of COVID-19, and at that time also because the people are just in one house. If you can see the statistics, the violence against women and within the family increased because people were really stressed. They are not able to go out from their houses, and people lack money, lack mobility. So there was really across the numbers of violence within the families at that time. We have also here, you can see the economic cost of violence against women. That is about 1.5 trillion annually. This is according to the World Bank in 2022. So now, what is the genesis? How it begins, and who are the people behind that? If you can see here, it begins with in 2020, especially with the AU high-level presidential initiative on positive masculinity in leadership to end violence against women and girls in Africa. So in 2020, there was a view to mobilize political commitment and action at the highest level of the AU leadership and decision-making to prevent and to end violence against women in Africa. And this was done with a lot of stakeholders, especially within the AU, and I will show you the lady behind this was Madame Bineta Diop. She's from Senegal. She's a leader, and she was behind all the draft of this convention. She's not alone, because with her, there was other people from the cabinet of the chairperson. As I said, she was a special envoy on women, peace and security, but there is also the Department of Women, Gender and Youth Directorate as a secretariat, and there was I witnessed that I saw wonderful ladies and even men who were behind all this idea. So this is how it begins. It begins at the high-level presidents, especially from Kinshasa. This was the first AU Men's Conference on Positive Masculinity Leadership to End Violence in Africa. It was in 25th of November 2021, and it was under the leadership of His Excellency Félix Antoine Tshilombo, the president of DRC. The second one, it was in the second men's conference. It was in Dakar, 2022, November 2022, under the leadership of His Excellency Macky Sall, at that time, President of Senegal. The third one was on November 2023 in Pretoria, South Africa, under the joint leadership of President Azali Assoumani from Comoros and AU chairperson, as well as His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa of the Republic of South Africa. So during all these different conferences, there was decisions, there was declaration, but there was a clear mandate given by the Assembly. It was the decision of 881 that gave the mandate, as I said, to begin submitting a draft convention for adoption by the Assembly in February 2025. So who will do that? It was done, the initiative was done on the basis of a group of legal and gender experts, and the mandate was that they are expected to provide technical expertise throughout the different stages of development of this convention. And the members of the reference group will be reputed legal and gender experts of high national and international standing, and they are independent and of high moral character, and they serve in this their personal capacity and are recognized as impartial. And the objective, as I said, of this reference group, who begins the work under the leadership of Her Excellency Bineta Diop, is to provide advisory and technical guidance and support to the legal expert tasked with drafting this convention. And the group also served as a think tank, providing expertise on the text of the draft convention, including addressing constatation and finding consensus and ensuring compliance alignment with the AU agreement language on issues under discussion. So the Office of the Legal Counsel was part of this since the beginning. So that's why I said I have really precious documents, because I tried before I began this PowerPoint presentation to gather information, if I can find articles, doctrine, case law, nothing. As I said, we are still with the new convention, and what I found is the drafts, the reports, the events done, and I gathered all that so that I can make this presentation, because till now there is no doctrine, no analysis of this convention. So I'm also witnessing for history, and I'm telling that the process really took a lot of efforts from these women, from all these leaders and these experts who did wonderful work, who took also, who listened to all people. You know, they've done a lot of consultation, including this one in August, including this one with traditional and religious leaders in October 2024 in Ethiopia. This is important all the time when we address issues of human rights in Africa, to consult and to speak loudly to all the stakeholders so that we can introduce all our specificities in this text. What I saw very well, and what I witnessed very well is when we began to discuss the draft. You know, the due process is, when the draft is ready, it should go to the STC, Justice and Legal Affairs. And the last year, in December 2024, it was done in Zanzibar. And the Secretariat of the STC, Justice and Legal Affairs, is our office, the Office of the Legal Counsel. So that this year, 2024, it was, the president were Tanzania, and Tanzania hosted us in Zanzibar, and we did a wonderful 1 week with experts. So before we go to the Executive Council, there is due process. As you know, the PRC itself is composed by subcommittees, and all the legal instruments, before they become conventions or instruments, they should go through the subcommittee on justice and legal affairs that OLC is its secretariat. So during these days, I saw the 55 member states discussing and negotiating each single article and each single word in this convention. And I can witness, and I can tell you, because I have the report, and the report is done by our office on the basis of what was done in Zanzibar. So I have the 10th ordinary session of the Specialized Technical Committee on Justice and Legal Affairs from the 21st to the 22nd December, that gives us an idea about what were the discussion about this convention. And I will quote the paragraph 29, where concerns were raised by the member states about the potential overlap between the draft convention and the existing African Union legal instruments. The member states at that time raised questions on the added value of the convention in relation with Maputo Protocol, The member states also suggested that the draft be anchored as a part of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights rather than being a standalone instrument. However, after discussion, the experts, because, you know, the member states are asking questions, and the experts and the Office of the Legal Counsel are responding to convince and to give the justification and the rationale behind each word, each article. Because as I said, during all the year 2024, there was a lot of online consultation workshops, so that we are we have the possibility to improve this text and to avoid any redundancy and to better it. So I remember very well how Madame Bineta Diop and her team, myself and my team, we were trying to give the rationale and the justification of this convention as a whole. It took us half a day. We even didn't begin the convention. Most of the member states said, this is redundant. Why we need such a convention? It is not needful. So we can put it with the Charter on Human and People's Rights, or they said, no, it is not something that we need. It is not a priority, etc. So after that, after discussion, the member states agreed that such a debate was moot as the EU Assembly of Heads of States and Government had already mandated the development of the standalone instrument. So there is a mandate, and as experts, it's a pyramid. The Assembly decided we cannot remove the decision, as the experts are at the bottom part. It is not at the top part. So subcommittee, after it comes the PRC, after executive council, and after it comes the assembly. The assembly are the heads of states, and as I said, the leadership of the presidents and all the different conferences I told you about are the basis, so we can not go against all this. The member states also suggested that the protection accorded by the draft convention should extend to the body child because the exclusion is discriminatory. However, the experts explained that in African cultural context, boys and girls face different social realities, and violence against women is a gendered form of abuse that does not apply in the same way to boy children. So I remember one of the delegates said, why you put the ending violence against women and girls? We have also to address the question of violence against boys. So the experts try to say that because of the statistics, again, we need a convention per se for the issue of women because of these specificities. I remember also in the definitions, there was a lot of negotiation and a lot of discussion concerning the girls, what we mean with women, what we mean with the masculinity. And after that, as I said, it was really something very healthy that there is a discussion between all the member states, and the one who initiated this till, as I said, we finish this committee in Zanzibar. I will address one of the issues that took us more than a day. It's about the committee of implementation and monitoring, and I will tell you why it was deleted. This is another issue. I will come there in the part 3 of my presentation. So after all this wonderful experience in drafting, in codification, and in logistic, now our convention is already, as I said, signed, or just it is created, and it is ready to be signed and ratified. Now, what is the content of this convention and what is its specificities? So concerning this, the convention, there is a preamble and 20 articles. The first draft was more than 20. As I told you, they deleted the whole part on the body responsible for monitoring and applying and implementing the convention. So now we have only a preamble and 20 articles. And I will tell you why they took away this body that is called the Committee on the Protection, and I will address this separately after. So if I just see this slide, it can give us an idea about the architecture of the convention. You can find after the preamble, as I said, that will give us an idea about the how and the why. What is the process, why we need this convention, and the specificity of the African perspective of ending violence against women. After that, we have the foundational provisions defining, we have the definitions in general. All the modern conventions will give a whole article for definition. It is not part of the preamble. The Article 2 is about the right to live free from violence. The Article 3 is about scope of this convention. The Article 4 is about the objectives. The Article 6 about guiding principles. If you remember, I told you that the part of this convention is about state obligations and duties from the Article 5 to 12. And if you can see in these different articles, it's about both preventive and protection measures. It is not only about once there is violence, we need also to prevent violence against women and girls. That's why the Article 10, it tackles the question of preventive measures, how we can do not to reach this ridiculous status of violence against women and girls in Africa. And the preventive measures in Article 10, if you can go through it, really it gives a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the member states, including enacting laws and adopting policies relating to all forms of violence against women and girls, and put in place preventive and support measures and services that ensure that women's and girls' human rights and fundamental freedoms are respected and protected by all duty bearers, that no customs, traditional or religious considerations are invoked to justify violence against women or girls, that effective sanctions and remedies to protect women and girls against all forms of violence and effective implementation and accountability mechanisms should be there. Also adopt measures to promote aspects of African culture and norms which encourage patterns of conduct that do not perpetrate women's and girls' vulnerability to violence, including femicide. Adopt, resource, and implement multi-sectorial and multidisciplinary campaigns for the promotion of public awareness on the nature, causes, consequences, and means of preventing violence against women and girls, both in public and private spheres and in the cyberspace. Engage the media, including social media, platforms, and the advertising industry to promote awareness of and sensitivity to violence against women and girls, etc., including strengthen the capacity for judges, magistrates, judicial officers, law enforcement officers, and other relevant duty bearers to prevent and to address violence against women and girls. I think this Article 10 is the core, is the most important backbone of all the convention, because better than staying just silent and waiting that there will be act of violence, it is better to prevent. And these preventive measures are, again, on the shoulders of the member states. So when we go to the Article 11, it's about protection and support. And one of the most important is also access to justice. So no more victims silent. We need also to introduce mechanism of establishing an effective and responsive referral process and procedural protections, including measures to protect the victims, dependents, witnesses during the criminal justice process, provisions of protection and restitution orders, compensation, reparation to victims, etc. So these are issues, again, that cannot be done at the level of the African Union. It is something that goes to the national parliaments so that we can have our national laws to stop and to end violence against women. And again, it depends on the degree of readiness of the different societies and the different countries. For example, in my country, in Tunisia, this was done in 2011, and it was done, the initiative came from civil society and professors. My professor, she was a wonderful person, Professor Sanad Ben Ashur, did this idea of the law to end violence against women. And because she was my professor, she taught us how she struggled, just to give you an idea how it comes from one individual reaching parliament, reaching the level of the state, and we are there, and we have a law to end violence against women. This woman, just with her own money, she opened the how to say, a house, so that she can put in it women and girls who have violence, who are beaten from their husbands, who have nothing to eat, who are in the street with their children, not only nationals, not only Tunisian women, but also the women, foreign women coming from sub-Saharan countries. So she gives them minimum of respect and dignity. And above all, she's telling us when we are asking her how you do that, she said these women don't even need anything else than being listened. She said, as you are there for them, just listen to them. They need just to tell their stories. They even do not need money or a house or whatever. They just need to speak. And this is very important. After that, she began to do the draft. She's just a professor, a woman, an individual. And she pushed and she went to the parliament, and it becomes something national, at the national level. And we have our law, very advanced one, to end violence against women in Tunisia. The same with other countries, and this is also a lot of leaders are behind that, a lot of networking. I know that Madame Bineta Diop is one of the founders of what is called AWLN, the African the African network of women in leaders in Africa. And this a lot of bureaus in the different African countries were open one after the other. And this is again how the society from the interior can be a power and a powerful movement to end violence against women. And plus, as I said, the media, the civil society, all of them, they put pressure on the state so that it can go to identify laws on preventive and protection and support and the reparation. So this is not something easy. That it is done in this decade. It is very interesting, and it can inspire the other countries. And I think because we are now dealing with it with more than 600, I do not have the statistics, people on the website nowadays, you are the ambassador of this convention and of our African Union and OAU instruments and treaties. You are the ambassadors to disseminate the knowledge. You are the ambassadors to push for your parliamentaries to disseminate, but also to domesticate at the national level. You are the power of the silent majority, even if you just stop these issues by speaking about it loudly and doing some campaigns. It's very important. And as I said, it is about courage of women and men who are convinced and who believe in all these issues together. I will go now fast because we have still other parts to address. Articles on cooperation and implementation, legal procedure are here. When I come to this part from 15 till 15 safeguard clause, I said, just I will tell you about the reason why the member states asked to delete the whole section on the committee, that is, as I said, normally responsible of implementation and monitoring. It is because we have what is called a moratorium on the establishment of new structures within the AU. And this moratorium was through the decision of the Executive Council 1186 on July 2022. So since 3 years, maybe you know that all international organizations have problem of budget constraint. And because we are under budget constraint, the member states decided not to create any new structures or new organs. You know what is an organ? That means you have 11 commissioners elected. That will cost money, especially when they do their different mandate, when they do their sessions, where they travel in business class. They have allowances, monthly allowances. So for the member states, we have not this luxury after COVID-19, and with all the budget constraints, the partners from the world are not giving enough money to the African Union. Member states have a lot of crisis, economically speaking. So because of that, they have this moratorium to stop the creation of any new organs and structures with very small exceptions. And through the exception, if it is a partner who will give the money, maybe it can be fine. And if it is really with very exceptional conditions. And that's why when the experts put in the draft this part on the committee, and after discussion with the experts really removed and insisted to remove the part of this monitoring body. So for us, as Office of the Legal Counsel, we were inspired with the other conventions, especially the one on nationality and statelessness, the Maputo Protocol. We cannot just erase it without any option. So the option is that we put another article on implementation. This was the Article 14. And my office, the Office of the Legal Counsel, copied it on the other conventions so that it can give the implementation to Banjul Commission and to the court. So this is exactly what was said in the charter, and its different protocols, and I will address that. So the idea behind is that we cannot have a convention just to speak about rights without a control. And that's why we put this Article 14. And I remember that there was a lot of negotiation and a lot of how to say, ping pong between the experts and the team of Madame Bineta Diop from one side and the member states from the other side, and the member states insisted and erased this part, and we agreed on the option, for instance, that the Banjul Commission will be the one who monitor. And maybe in the future, this does not exclude that in the future, maybe we can create, when the time is good enough, to create a new committee that has the responsibility to implement and to monitor. Now, when I go to the definition, I will just tackle the specificity of the definition of violence against women and girls in our African Convention. What is different? If you go to the different conventions, protocols, declarations, and I put here some examples, I will just go to the definition of United Nations. Violence against women does not mean only physical violence. It is much broader, and it does include sexual, emotional, psychological, and financial abuse. This is the general definition, but in the text, so these are different forms of violence. It should not be only, as I said, physical. It can have a lot of other forms. When we go here, I will do a comparison between the United Nations Declaration and our convention and see the colors. In this one, the one of United Nations, it does address all the forms of violence. You see the part in blue: physical, sexual, psychological harm or suffering. In our convention, in blue, you see verbal, emotional, physical, sexual, psychological, and it does add or economic harm. You cannot find economic harm here. Again, when we see our text, we need to remember the dates. The one of United Nations, it is done in the 90s. Our is in 2025, so we need to do it as much updated as possible. In green, what are the threats? So, or what are the kind of threats? It can be act, coercion, or arbitrary deprivation of liberty. This is United Nations. In ours, in the African Convention, in green, it does include the threat to take such acts or to undertake the imposition of arbitrary restriction on or deprivation of fundamental freedoms. You see here in the green, in both texts, it is not only act, but also the threat. So if you have the intention to commit violence against women, this is a kind of form of violence against women. If you do not act, it's just a threat. You see, it's very important to have in mind this wide or extensive definition. Now, the scope of application. Can you see here in yellow? In the United Nations one, it is called whether in public or private life only. Our specificity in Africa, you can see here in yellow. It is in the private, public spheres or in cyberspace. I'm trying to tell you that we are in 2025. So we are at least more than 20 years after the Declaration of United Nations. Nowadays, this phone is an arm. And a lot of women nowadays, I know a lot, my students tell me, and because I have also a course on intellectual property and all these issues of cyber security and these issues. So they ask, is this violence against women and girls? Can I go to the police station and tell them that I'm under threat, etc., etc.? These are new kind of violence. It is not only face-to-face, it can be even on cyber. You know, with this in IA, intelligence, artificial intelligence, people, they can even put your face on porno movies or whatever, and they can threaten you, and it is even not you, but it is just a kind of putting stress on you to have money, to have any kind of counterpart. And this is obviously, with the definition that you can see in front of you, kind of violence against women that should be punished. Also, if you can see here, the definition, we end the definition like that at the United Nations Declaration. However, ours, it gives us all the different times. This is the temporis ratione, when in times of peace, armed conflict, transition, post-conflict, disaster, post-disaster situation. So all these times, in any of these time, we can find kind of violence against women. So the one who need to see this definition, they can go to the Article 1 about definitions, and it is K. Obviously, in our definition, the scope of application is really very wide, and it does cover the modernity of kinds of violence that we can see nowadays. Now, very quickly, we are still in the content and the specificities. This convention, as I said, it does recognize that violence happens at home, in public, online, in conflict. It does affect girls, older women, women with disabilities, displaced persons, and more. And there is articles that give the details on that. And as I said, most of the articles are about responsibility and obligations of the states to criminalize all forms of violence, to fund support services, and train police, judges, etc., involve men, boys, communities, and religious leaders, and use real data to shape policies. By the way, I remember when we are in Zanzibar, they asked that we introduce the definition of what is cyberspace. So in the definitions, you can find that cyberspace means a digital medium of communication and interaction of global or interconnected systems. So at the beginning, the first draft does not cover what is the definition of the cyberspace. Also, you can see that it does protect women and girls, informal jobs, domestic work, cyberspace, and it does call for equal pay, safe work environment, etc., etc. So this convention, as I said, needs, if you can see the last paragraphs about the signature, ratification, and accession, it's the Article 16. It does need, like all the other conventions, at least 15 member states to enter into force. Now, in the specificities, maybe I already said about the specificities, especially in the definition, as it is large when we compare it to the other legal instruments related to ending violence against women. Also, one of the innovation that at the first draft, I said they put this committee, and after that it was deleted, and I explained why it was deleted, because of the moratorium of 2022. Implementation and monitoring systems, this is what I needed to tell you. So we introduced it as Office of the Legal Counsel, because when they deleted this part on the committee, there is nothing on implementation. So we were inspired with the other conventions on human rights, especially Maputo Protocol and the Convention on Nationality and Statelessness. In this Article 14, this is the Article 14 in front of me, it gives the duty of implementation to Banjul Commission as required under the Article 62 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. Remember that Banjul Commission does exist since the Charter. So at that time, there was no African court. The African court came later. We are still not, at that time in the 80s, not ready for a court. It is not like at the European continent. In Europe, the European Court on Human Rights is something that does exist more than 70 years, I think. And its jurisprudence and their cases are highly inspiring the world. Same with the Inter-American Court. So these courts, as I said, they are older than our court. Can you imagine that we will put a court in Africa to give binding decisions in the field of human rights on African countries? This is really something that is very sensitive. That's why African Union tried to go bit by bit, and that's why before African Union came and took the lead on the Organization of African Unity, they began with the Banjul Commission. And when it is said commission, that means they only give recommendation. They do not give any decision. It is not binding. However, the court, when we have cases, and we still do not have cases, this convention didn't enter into force, but Maputo Protocol, for the base of Maputo Protocol that already entered into force and that does exist for more than a lot of disputes and a lot of cases in Banjul Commission on the issue of Maputo, and where the judges employed Maputo Protocol in their action. And I think in the coming years, we can find others coming the basis of ending violence against women. And that's why in the last paragraph, it is said, where applicable, the shall have the mandate to hear disputes arising from the application or implementation of this convention. So 14 that was added and does cover all the articles that were deleted at the beginning from 13 to 24, where they just try to reflect the importance of a community. And by the way, the experts really struggled a lot and insisted a lot on the committee, and it took us more than for the member states, but in fine, so the experts said we cannot decide, the ministerial level decide. And at the ministerial level, they said no, not able to do that. As we have the moratorium, we have to respect the rule of law. And that's why I said it was deleted and placed by this Article 14 on the implementation. Now, these are the people who are able to do implementation. African People's Rights, you have here Remy, the chairperson or actual chairperson of Banjul Commission, and this lady in one of the persons behind also pushing for the ratification of, and I will show you the picture how in Malabo and after in when we had our mid-year coordination meeting, we were able to have some signature because of her dynamism. Why? Who is this lady? She is Commissioner Janet Salah. She's from Gambia, and she's the special rapporteur on the rights of women in Africa. So she has a mandate, and in her mandate, she has to assist African governments in developing and implementing national policies to promote and to protect women's rights in Africa. She has also the obligation to monitor implementation of African Charter and all the other conventions, including Maputo Protocol and this one. She has also the possibility to conduct a comparative study on the situation of women's rights in African countries and to establish guidelines for state reports. And she do wonderful work. And I will show you other women who were before her, special rapporteur on the rights of women in Africa, doing really, she's a leader. As I'm telling you, she contacted presidents and ministers and she pushed so that they can sign and ratify the new convention ending violence against women. And she was successful in a lot of her missions. So this is how things move. You know, we need courageous people who insist and who continue to pursue the mechanism and to continue to disseminate this kind but she's not alone. As I said, there is a department on women, gender, and youth union. All the directors and the people in this department are wonderful people. You can see their messages on LinkedIn, on Facebook, trying to push, trying to say that this is a wonderful occasion. We are witnessing, we are making history. The message for all women in Africa, the future generation are waiting for us. We should not be silent. It's for them, etc., etc. So this is why we need such individuals to push. Also, I told you what is the role of the court in the implementation, especially when cases come in front of the court. And the court, as I said, it does all the instruments legally binding in the field of human rights. It is not only Charter of Human and People's Rights, but all the other instruments of AU or AU dealing the human rights perspectives. We have also, as we are dealing, we have another body that is a quasi-judicial body that is African of experts on rights and the welfare of the child, and this is the actual bureau, and also this body, this organ is linked to the convention, and they are also trying and pushing and doing their best. Now I will finish with the last, maybe the most important, to be realistic. What kind of challenges we can in the implementation, and what can be the recommendation and the perspectives of implementation? One of the most important challenges, and this is exactly what Professor Virginia Morris said in introduction. Internet is unstable. I hope that I'm audible. I said in her introduction, she said, the problem comes from member states and the political will. So as a member state refuse to sign and to ratify this convention will just be black, has no meaning, no, it cannot be ratified, it will not enter into force, it is nothing. So that's why I said one of the important is ratification. And that's why for the challenges, I will show you the pictures. So Djibouti was the first country who signed this convention. Signature does not mean ratification. We are still with this. We have till now 6. Signature means that there is a political will to adhere to the convention. However, it does wait. We have to wait all the process constitutionally so that the procedure are met, so that the state ratify at the level of the parliament, and after they can put it in our office of the legal council. So Djibouti came officially in our to sign. This is the first signature. When we were in our mission mid-coordination meeting, it was in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, on the side, tried to push, and you can see here Commissioner Janet and the new special envoy for women also, they push and they try to connect. Because the commissioner is from Gambia, so she asked her fellowship and her leaders to become also the second state to sign, and this was also, as we are Office of the Legal Counsel, we have to witness that. So we did it with Gambia. After that, we have RDC, Democratic Republic of Congo, and this was the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. And as I said, RDC is one of the leaders in the issues of positive masculinity. So we did the third signature the same day. The day after, just the day after, we have, it was, I remember really these circumstances, it was Sunday, so Liberia and Angola said we are ready. So we rushed, we ran so that they can sign. It was a good opportunity. And this is Angola. You can see here the Minister of Foreign Affairs, His Excellency Tete, who signed it also on behalf of Angola. After that, the day after, and this was the last day, it was not Saturday, Sunday, we have the sixth state, and this was not Cameroon. How was this one? Yeah, it was Burundi. So this was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and it was the last country who signed. The day we are how to say, leaving Malabo, we are said Equatorial Guinea is interested. So we had our flight at something like 12. We ran, all of us, the commissioner, the special envoy, myself, my team, with the flags, with the folders to Equatorial Guinea Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We were there, but they said, unfortunately, they have another casual, so they are not able to do it. And they said once back to Addis Ababa, they will give the authority to the ambassador to do it. So we are waiting for Equatorial Guinea, also Ethiopia, also some other countries, including Tunisia. So this is to tell you that behind each signature we are doing, there is a lot of preparation, negotiation, struggle, fight. And this is just because, as I said, we are making history, and a lot of women in Africa and girls are waiting for this convention to enter into force. So this is about the question of ratification. If I can go up again to the challenges, I put here 5 of the main important challenges that I identified. The issue of domestication. So, you know, we have 55 member states with different cultures, religions, backgrounds. So sometimes, for some countries, it's very difficult to domesticate this convention at the level of the national level. So there is also the problem of lack of resources resulting in insufficient funding and capacity building. You can see that most of the articles, the disposal, the rules are concerning the responsibility of the state. So if the state is not ready, it is impossible to react and to introduce this issue of prevention and protection. We have inadequate research and data collection on cases relating to violence. And I told you, sometimes women are shy, they are afraid, they are under pressure, so they say nothing. So to make evidence-based solutions, there should be a changement of mentality, and there should be means, for example, green number, for example, so that you can call for free and other. You know, it's about witnessing, but also it's about having the proof that you are under violence, and all these issues can be fixed in the future if we need this convention to be implemented correctly. The issue of the conflict and instability, no one can be blind about the number of people under aggression daily in conflicts in Africa. And as I said, the first victims are women, girls, babies, children, and we are witnessing a lot of sad stories. You can see on the news how women are raped, and rape become a means of war. Limited engagement of men in preventing and ending violence because of masculinity norms, traditional masculinity norms, and patriarchism. But as I said, I do not have to generate. This is depending from one country to another, from one region to another. But I think it's an issue that can be prepared from the school, from the family, mass media. So that's why one of the paragraphs said multidisciplinary and multiform prevention. It is not only the state, it is not only the police, it is not only the family, it is something that should be spread everywhere and at every time. So this is a little bit what I needed to say about the challenges, and for the perspectives of implementation. Once again, it's political will. We need more states, and to have more states signing and implementing, it is your role. You as scholars, as ambassadors, as judges, as just free minds, you can, with your articles, encourage implementation in your different countries. And I can see you are 55 countries. So already the consequences of this seminar today can have implication. You can just push. Maybe people do not know that we have our own convention. So this is also your role. maybe also we have a lot of other things that we can do, especially campaigns that we can do. We have this What Africa Women Want. It's a wonderful campaign, and they are doing a lot, and they have YouTube videos, and you can just follow it. And we have these women I told you about, the special rapporteur on women. These are all the women since 20 years or 25 years being special rapporteur on the rights of women in Africa. And they are doing great, and I hope that Banjul Commission continue their wonderful work in disseminating the African standards and framework concerning protection of women. Also, let's celebrate. I just have this idea because me in Tunisia on these days, we do a lot at the university, at the hotels, for the civil society. We begin to put Maputo Protocol. We push it that Tunisia ratify Maputo Protocol, and we discovered that people from the Ministry of Women in our country, they do not know about it. So we begin to disseminate. We do a lot of seminars, and that's how, because of these dates, Africa's Women's Day will be in 10 days. You can do something in your country so that you can disseminate our framework in Africa. And the same at the international level. We have 25th of November. This is the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. We can think about something in the universities, at the level of African Union, the level of Office of the Legal Council. I'm thinking about AU Law Week. And I already discussed with my team about concentrating on this convention this year and doing something on the AU Law Week here in Addis Ababa. So this is what I needed to say. I'm sorry, I just I was so long, but I think that it was very important to tell you about the importance of this convention and how we can struggle together to witness for history and to make some change. Your girls, your daughters, your friends, your babies are waiting for us. If we do nothing, violence against women and girls will continue without any accountability. What we need, it is not only about awareness, it's also about finding rules, binding rules to stop the people who violate women and girls in Africa, and accountability. That means justice. So this is, as you said, a lot of stakeholders, all of them responsible of this circle. So let's continue the fight together. As Office of the Legal Counsel, we are open. If you have any questions, if I'm not able to address all of them today, please make, I put my email, and once we finish, maybe the organizers can send you the PDF version of my presentation. Let's keep in touch. Do articles, do theses. The dissemination comes also from analyzing our different texts. Do comparative studies at the international level, universal level, the other continent, what they have, and be proud being African and having all these legal framework. Other colleagues will continue in this wonderful week. You will be enriched with a lot of specificities in Africa. So we have to be proud, and we have to continue the work of Pan-Africanist and generation of lawyers, of leaders coming before us. We have to continue and never give up the fight.
I would like to ask you a question, if I may.
Please.
What are your views concerning the importance and the urgency of all African nations signing and ratifying the recent African Union Convention on Ending Violence Against Women and Girls?
It is of the highest importance. It is really something that requires utmost priority and urgency. And I think that African states cannot continue to put laws on the books, just to adopt laws, to adopt conventions, to adopt protocols, to adopt treaties in Addis Ababa, and then forget about them. No, you can't forget about them. Otherwise, don't adopt them. There are more than 60, I think 70 now, treaties, conventions, protocols that have been adopted by the African Union and its predecessor, the Organization of African Unity. And many of them have not yet been ratified. But look at this one that Virginia has just mentioned. It is of extreme importance that this convention and other conventions and treaties that are still in the drawers of bureaucrats in African states should actually be ratified and taken to the parliaments of African states, because Africa will not have a viable and effective public law which deals with issues like violence against the girls and against women, unless this instrument is ratified. And it is high time it should be ratified. And I hope all those who are listening to me today will work to that end, will work for that objective, will push their states, and will ask them that they should immediately ratify this convention.